What's up YouTube, I'm Mike, and today I'm trying a little bit different location for this video instead of that cramped office that I've been recording in. Today what we're going to talk about is, I suspect, going to be a controversial topic. I'm not sure why it is, other than that there's a lot of bro science out there that seems to say the opposite of the case that I'm going to present today. So what we're talking about is Primobolan an anti-estrogen? That is what I have always heard, that Primobolan, like Masteron, would lower your estrogen, would lower the estrogen levels primarily in men because it binds to the aromatase enzyme. I have never been able to find a single solitary study that reinforces this claim, but because it is so commonly made, like the lie that Primobolan is hepatotoxic, it's not. I have an entire video on that. I will link that up here. Because of the bro science, the anecdotal reports saying that Primobolan will lower your estrogen levels, I have intentionally steered clear of it because, as you know, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, estrogen is like the fucking bane of my existence. I am extremely sensitive to aromatase expression, and I am extremely sensitive to estrogen. So where most guys seem to be able to have estrogen levels that are substantially higher than the reference range without causing any problems, it causes me a whole host of problems. If my estrogen levels go low, I have problems. If they go slightly high, I have problems. So really, I feel my best when I can use an aromatase inhibitor along with an aromatizing hormone and dial in my estrogen levels right in the middle of the range is where I like to be. I can get to the high normal area and feel good, but really outside of that, I immediately start getting gyno. So I'm very unlucky in that case, and because of that, it makes me a particularly good guinea pig for testing how different compounds interact with either A, aromatase, or B, estrogen receptors. So I finally decided a couple of months ago to give Primo a shot. I had my estrogen dialed in perfectly with the testosterone that I was taking. So at 200 milligrams of testosterone cypionate a week, my body, counter to what all of you people will tell me, requires 1.5 milligrams of Arimidex to keep my estrogen in range, to keep me from getting gyno. In fact, because of the way I take the AI, which is 1 milligram on Tuesdays and a half a milligram on Saturdays, which is just the way my TRT company wrote it up for me, I tend to start getting a little puffy toward the end of the week in my nipple region. So I am very, very, very sensitive. So I set out to take 100 milligrams of Primo a week along with 200 milligrams of Test C to find out what would happen. And lo and behold, my estrogen did not crash. I know when my estrogen crashes without a doubt because two things happen every single time. One, I start having erection problems, and two, I absolutely lose all interest in sex at all. I mean, I lose all interest in my wife sometimes. Like, I don't want to talk, I don't want to interact, I just do not have any interest in cuddling or being emotionally available to her at all. I can usually function sexually when my estrogen is very low, but I just don't care about it. I don't care about pleasing her. I'm usually just like in a hurry to get it over with, which is absolutely polar opposite what happens on the other end of the spectrum. So if my estrogen gets low, I know very, very rapidly, and I can guarantee you that on 200 milligrams of Test C and 100 milligrams of Primo E, I did not see a reduction in my estrogen levels. So I upped the dose. For the past 5 to 6 weeks, I have been on 200 milligrams of Primo E and 200 milligrams of Test C, and I continue to see no signs whatsoever of a lower estrogen level. Again, before making this video, I tried to look for any evidence, any scientific evidence that I could find for estrogen for Primo either binding to an aromatase enzyme or binding to the estrogen receptor, doing anything to lower estrogen, and I could not find anything. So if somebody has a study out there, please, in the description, I would love to see that. The Anabolic Doc, in fact, even made a video, I think 2 months ago, where he talked about the anecdotal claim that Primobolan lowers estrogen and that he found no scientific evidence of that actually occurring. So what's happening? Why are so many guys saying that this occurs if in fact it does not, which is my position today? What I think is actually occurring is that, like people say very commonly, Primo is very often faked. Very rarely is Primo, according to what I have been told and what I have seen. Greg Doucette has talked about this extensively, and apparently what is often used instead of Primo is Masteron, which we know can lower estrogen. In fact, that's one of the things it was created for. Masteron was originally designed for breast cancer, specifically ER-positive breast cancers, which are estrogen-related breast cancers. And because of the fact that it binds to the estrogen receptor, blocks estrogen activity, it is able to effectively lower estrogen levels. I think I have that basically, that's like the Cliff's Notes version of it. And so if that's in fact what you are injecting, if you bought Primo and you got Masteron and you use it in sufficient doses, then you would absolutely expect to see your estrogen levels drop. In fact, I have myself been able to successfully use Masteron in place of at least part of my, my aromatase inhibitor. So usually if I'm taking 200 milligrams of Test-C and I put in, say, 300 milligrams of Masteron, I can get away with 1 milligram or less of Arimidex rather than 1.5 milligrams of Arimidex and still keep my estrogen levels in check. Now, I know there's going to be a bunch of you guys in the comments that's going to point to videos that Vigorous has made or your own personal experiences that taking Primo lowered your estrogen. One, I would love to see somebody in the comments who can show me a lab report that says this was definitively Primo and blood work before and after that showed that your estrogen levels declined. I suspect we're not going to see that. I think that while I don't always agree with the take that the Anabolic Doc has, or certainly his presentation of his take, I think that if there was any real scientific evidence for this, it would be out there. If you look up even something as basic as the Wikipedia page for Masteron or Drostanolone versus the Wikipedia page for Metenolone or Primobolan, you will see that Masteron talks about the fact that it is an anti-estrogen, and nothing on the Primobolan page says that. So again, I'm not calling anyone a liar. I'm just saying from my own personal guinea pig experiences, I have not seen any evidence that Primobolan is in fact lowering estrogen levels. Now, maybe that's because of the way my body reacts with aromatase. Maybe my body aromatizes so much estrogen that it's not really showing up. Although I would argue that's not really possible because of the fact that I'm using an AI at such a high level. Really, any reduction in my estrogen levels should become symptomatic very quickly, as is what happens when I definitely knock my estrogen into the toilet, which I have done any number of times. The last time that I knocked my estrogen into the toilet, all it took was a vial of HCG that I was told was 500 IUs, was actually 2,500 IUs. So I was taking half the HCG that I thought I was taking and knocked my estrogen into the toilet with 1.5 milligrams of Arimidex per week. So I take, I think it's 500 IUs of HCG along with Test-C, and that I can't remember if it's 500 or if it's 250 or 500. I can't remember, but I take HCG along with my testosterone replacement therapy, and lowering the HCG amount slightly is enough to crash my estrogen at 1.5 milligrams of Arimidex. So I don't want to sit here and make this video longer than it needs to be. You know, some guys make videos as, you know, ridiculously long so they can run as many ads, run as many ads as possible during their videos. I really don't care that much about how much ad revenue I get. I just enjoy playing the guinea pig. Somebody in one of my in the comments on one of my previous videos was like, why are you running Primo at all if you weren't even lifting that much? I answered that question in that video, but as again, most of you know, I am never saying that I'm an example of what normal, reasonably minded people should do. I run anabolics all the time for two major reasons. One, I'm a little bit of a drug addict. And two, because I just like to experiment with compounds. I don't have a lot of blasting and cruising left in the tank. I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm 42 years old, almost 43 years old. I'm not gonna be able to do this forever. And so while I can afford it and while I have access to it and while I'm in reasonably good health, I like to run experiments because I like to test things for myself. I'm not the kind of guy who just trusts whatever you read. It's one of the biggest reasons I didn't take Primobolan for so long. In fact, it's one of the biggest reasons I didn't do steroids when I was a younger man. One of my biggest regrets in life, before I say this, I am not endorsing anyone taking steroids. I'm not endorsing anyone breaking the law. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a coach, all that bullshit aside. One of my biggest regrets in life is that I did not start taking steroids at a younger age. I think that I could have been competitive on a bodybuilding stage. I think I could have built possibly a functional brand like so many people have done and been able to turn bodybuilding into a business if I had done it at a young age. Certainly my body count would have been a lot higher if I had spent my 20s at 195 jacked instead of 130 soaking wet, which is what I look like for the majority of my 20s. So I really wish I had gotten into steroids earlier, and the biggest reason that I didn't was because of all the bro science that said the second you stop using steroids, you just lose all of your gains. I've already made one video talking about that fact. I'm going to make another to again refute a comment. Somebody in the comment section said, well, the reason you didn't lose any appreciable size on when you stopped lifting is because you're not beyond your genetic limit. I think that that's patently false, and I'm going to make a video going into all the reasons why I believe that it is false. So that is one of the reasons that I run compounds nearly year-round, because I just like to experiment, and then I make these videos telling you guys about my experiments so that hopefully you can use anabolics for, in a safer way, a more efficacious way, so that you can get the best bang for your buck, and so that you don't waste time believing bro science bullshit, which is like the vast majority of the information out there. It's really, really unfortunate that we still live in a world where we cannot get good data about these hormones because they've all been made illegal, and don't even get me started on that. My wife and I have been going through a nightmare for the past year just trying to get a hold of her estrogen that she's prescribed by a doctor, and they have been out of it at like every pharmacy for a year. But meanwhile, not to get political, while my wife couldn't get her estrogen for her menopause symptoms, we've got men all over the country that seem to be getting ready access to estrogen to try to turn themselves into women. I have a video about that coming up as well, but I will save that obviously for a different time. So there you have it. I do not believe that there is any evidence that Primobolan is in fact an anti-estrogen. I do not think that it inhibits aromatase expression. I do not think it binds to the estrogen receptor in any way. I don't think it outcompetes anything. I think that there is no evidence that this is true. If you have some good concrete evidence of your own, if you have a study, if you have something to link, please put it in the comment section below. And if I'm wrong, I am happy to make a video saying that I was wrong and someone proved it, and I will give you all the credit in the world. So there you have it. Hopefully this has been educational. Hopefully this has been informative, and we'll see you on the next one.